You want to buy a house, but you're pinned down by frustration, fear, and a hurricane of emotions. You have to make life-altering decisions in a split second with your life savings at risk of disintegrating before your eyes. You're experiencing fear, love, hate, regret, excitement, and you're being pulled in every single direction with no real way of knowing exactly how everything's gonna play out. And to make things 1,000 times harder, the market is changing pretty much every single day. But you know what? It doesn't have to be like this. Most new buyers are expected to make all these insane life-changing decisions with pretty much no experience at all. After years of helping new buyers, I've developed and optimized a process that helps educate and prepare buyers to make home buying as efficient as possible. When it's time for us to hit the offer table, we're more prepared, confident, and 10 times more likely to crush the competition. I don't know about 10 times, but we do make more informed decisions that typically result in a happy outcome. If you're new here, my name is Dan. I'm your go-to realtor for all things first-time buyer. If you don't own a home yet, this is where you wanna be. This entire channel is dedicated to helping new buyers get the information that they need to help make educated decisions when preparing to buy a home. In this video, I'm gonna give you some insight on the biggest decisions buyers are experiencing right now in what seems to be an uphill battle. This video is gonna be broken down into 3 major sections. 1, what's stopping you from buying a home? 2, what's happening in the market today? And 3, the answer to the big question, should you buy or should you wait? Let's get things started. First up on the agenda, what is stopping you from buying a home? Why is it so hard to decide? You have the money, you're qualified, you could act at any moment. Well, there is a lot at play here. When it comes down to it, people are just scared or worried or doubtful. But I break it down into 4 categories to help you understand it a little bit better. Uncertainty. Market uncertainty is one of the biggest drivers of indecision in our marketplace. When do you buy? Do you wait? Will the market crash? Will prices start to rise again? We are so concerned with the what if that some just don't do anything. Buying a home to later find out that the house down the street sold for $20,000 less can sting a little bit, but not buying that home and having it increased by $20,000 might hurt a little bit more. The thing is, no one really knows what's gonna happen here. We can look back on historical data and what's going on in the world to make an educated guess, but at the end of the day, that's all it is. The key here is to manage risk by speaking with a mortgage professional. If you can afford to take the risk in a market where most are gonna sit on the sidelines, I say go for it. Then we have what has been making headlines all week. Interest rates. We have been on a wild roller coaster ride for the last couple of years. After seeing some of the lowest rates in history, we get hit hard with some of the most aggressive hikes ever seen. Of course, this causes a lot of panic. We now know how quick things can shift, and that could be kind of scary. One important thing to remember is that rates are cyclical. Eventually, they're gonna come back down. Home prices, on the other hand, if we look at the last 40 years of data, home prices tend to go up in value, which brings us into home prices. Everyone wants a deal when buying a home. I mean, it makes sense, who wouldn't? But is this preventing you from buying a home? I mean, how do you know what a deal is anyways? Are you comparing the home prices to 5 years ago when they were half the price? Because that's a huge increase. Or are they compared to a few months ago when they were 30% more expensive? Because when you're doing that, you're actually getting a deal. What if you buy a home below list price? Is that a deal? How would you even know? The list price is a made-up number created to make you feel like you're getting a deal. You see what's happening here? The problem is that most people are waiting for prices to bottom out. But when is the bottom? And when we get there, is that even really the best time to act? Because if you figured it out, I'm sure everyone else has too. And I think at that point, you're probably too late. And then we have the media. The media can be a real treat, but most of the time the information the media spits out is not always reliable. Let's be real. Media outlets get paid to sell stories, not houses. They're known for creating wild stories and targeting unusual scenarios that don't make up a majority of how the market actually operates. I'm not saying avoid the news, just be mindful on your situation and how changes to the market impact you and you only. On to the next section, what is happening in the market today? We're gonna start with rates because they seem to be the trending topic right now. The Bank of Canada has hiked its key overnight interest rates again, this time by 75 basis points, which puts us at 3.25%. This is now the 5th increase just in 2022. The rate might not seem that high, and to be honest, it's not in comparison to what we've seen historically. The problem is that most people are impacted by the increase in such a short period of time. The bottom line here is that money should have never been so cheap and so easy to borrow. But there is a silver lining here. As a first-time buyer, you're obviously not impacted in the same way as a homeowner because, well, you don't own a home and you don't have a mortgage yet. Yes, interest rates do impact buying power, but when home prices come down as a result, you get some of that power back. Let's have a look. Okay, so I'm gonna break this down for you in a comparison. So back in February, the average price for a condo was $830,000. Your down payment for this amount at 20% would be $166,000 over a 20-year amortization period, and the interest rates at that point were probably about 3%, give or take. So now, the average price for a condo is $730,000, which is $100,000 less just in a few months, which means you're only paying $146,000 if you're going in with 20% over a 25-year amortization period, and our rates are now sitting somewhere around 5% with all these new increases. You calculate this, you're gonna notice that even though there's a huge difference in pricing, the monthly payments are pretty much the same, give or take a couple $100s. So the biggest difference that you're gonna notice here is that your mortgage amount is gonna be significantly less today than it would have been back then. Of course, your interest is gonna be a lot higher, but this number changes. If we go down to 4%, let's say the interest rates go back down to 4% in February of next year, suddenly your interest cost has gone down a lot, and your mortgage amount will have gone down as well because you will have paid down your principal in this period of time. This is important to consider. You can see the benefit of buying with high rates and low prices versus over here where you were buying with a high price and a really low interest rate. When this goes up to 5%, which is what people are experiencing right now, the mortgage amount stays the same, but look at that. Your mortgage payments each month go up a lot, and the amount of interest that you're paying over this 25-year period is almost more than the amount you're paying for the house. This is why it's important to cancel the noise and speak to a professional. You never know how this is going to impact you individually until you actually crunch the numbers and figure it out for yourself. So what's next on the interest rate agenda? Will we get some relief? Well, is anyone really sure? It's forecasted that we may see more increases leading up to 2023. The Bank of Canada has made it very clear that they will take the necessary steps in an effort to combat inflation. And well, they've definitely proven that in the last few months. So what about the real estate market? What's going on out there right now? Well, we went from one of the most chaotic markets on record to, well, now, which is nice and calm for the most part. We have tons of homes sitting on the market, sometimes for weeks or even months for some properties. In fact, the average days on market is sitting at around 23 days in Toronto. This is way more time on market than the peak of the market where some homes sold in as little as a couple of hours. The power has now shifted from the seller to the buyer in some cases. Having conditional offers has become the norm. You can shop around, choose for a home that you actually like, and negotiate that price way down. It's great. I work with buyers primarily, so this market is something that I actually prefer. But how long is this gonna last? Well, based on the report that just came out for August, we are already starting to see an increase in activity. Are we seeing the start of what could be our fall market? Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. The average price for a home in Toronto as recorded in August was $1,031,000. This is a slight increase of $10,000 since July of this year. Not much, but I think that's a little sign of some growth. As for year-over-year comparison, we are not seeing much growth here. The average price for a home is only up 1% since this time last year. But let's break this down even further. Detached homes in Toronto are averaging out at $1,648,000. The average price for a semi-detached in Toronto is $1,127,000. You can grab yourself a nice little townhouse for $913,000, and a perfect starter condo is going for around $736,000 right now. In comparison to this time last year, each of these home types is taking a little bit of a hit. And well, that's kind of expected with all these rate increases. Oh, that was a lot of numbers. Need to take a little break after all that. So I think this is the perfect time to thank you for watching up to this point, and I'd really appreciate it if you put a little like on this video to help get the video in front of more people just like you. Maybe hit the subscribe button as well. Let's dive back into it. So now, after all that, what are we gonna do about it? Isn't this the question that we all wish we had the answers to? Obviously, one of the biggest problems is that rates impact affordability. For any buyers who were already sitting at their max budget and struggling to get into the market, these increases will continue to reduce buying power even further. It's important to do the research for yourself. Everybody's in a different situation when it comes to income, debt, savings, budget, so every single person will be impacted by this differently. Interestingly enough, home prices have come down so much that it can actually be more affordable in some cases to enter the market today than back when rates were low and prices were high. When a home is sold for less, you're paying a lower down payment, which results in less land transfer tax, closing costs, and of course, a much lower price for your home. This could be a great opportunity to score a really good price on a starter home or condo. For homeowners that are on an adjustable rate mortgage, which means that your payments will either increase or decrease with changes to the rate, your monthly payments have been and will continue to go up as as we see more increases. Then we have those of you with static payment mortgages. This is similar, but the amount that you pay is fixed. When interest rates change, the payment stays the same, but the ratio of principal to interest will shift, which leads us to the popular term of the week, trigger rate. The trigger rate is a rate at which the regular mortgage payments you're making no longer cover the interest portion of your loan. Nothing is going to your principal, and any deferred interest is now being added to your mortgage balance. This should be clearly identified in your mortgage contract. If you're concerned about this happening to you, it's important to reach out to your lender to see what your options are. And now we're gonna answer the biggest question that buyers have right now. Do you wait or do you buy? You're gonna hate me for this answer, but it really depends. This could be a really great opportunity to get into the market for new buyers, especially those who have been waiting to get in for the last few years. The most difficult part of buying a home isn't the timing of the market or interest rates or home prices. It's about finding the place that checks all the boxes, getting into a great neighborhood where you can start a family and plant some roots, feeling confident that you made the right choice by adding conditions to have an inspection that will allow you extra time for care and due diligence. What about not being forced into a home you don't like because it was all that was left or all that you could afford? And what about not feeling like you overpaid because there were 20 other offers in competition with you? Listen, all of that is gone. There is so much opportunity and choice that may not exist in the future. And guess what? When everyone else jumps in, it's already too late. Just remember to reach out to an experienced realtor like myself, do some research together, look for those great opportunities, and more importantly, ignore the noise. If the timing works for you, if it works financially for you, even with some wiggle room for potential increases in the future, I say go for it. Real estate is a long-term investment, as you've probably heard before. If you look at any 10-year span, prices will always see growth. If you're looking for short-term gains, I wouldn't count on it too much, but I mean, if you're all about taking risks, you never really know. Wow, that was a lot. And you know what? Even with all this great market info, you really have to understand all the costs that are going to be involved and how much or how little you actually need to save for a down payment. And that's why you should watch this video right here, where I take a deep dive into the minimum cost to buy a home in Toronto.